Hi there. This is Terry Cole with Street Youth Ministry and mightyforce.org. And this is video number 4 in a deep dive on getting started with permission sets and permission set groups. We have covered where to find permission sets in your settings. Just type in users and you'll see all the possible setup pages. We've covered what those pages look like, and we've created an initial scaffolding so that we can begin the very next time we need to change permissions, we can begin to be a permission set based admin. If you haven't created your scaffolding yet, go back to video 3 and do that. It's very safe, and I think you'll be happy that you've done it. So now let's talk about, once you've created that scaffolding, the types of typical work you'll do on a day-to-day basis with permission sets. So here are some of those. Let me get rid of the talking head here. All right. So you will be told, for example, to add some new permission sets when you get a new release. And the instructions that we get from Salesforce always say, go to the profile and add it to the profiles. Absolutely ignore that. Instead, what we're going to do is stop making any changes here in the profile for permissions. And instead, we're going to go put additional capabilities into the permission set that corresponds to the profile. And those will automatically get given up to the permission set group and will get automatically added to the profile that the user has, and everything will be done. And that is your simplest way of using permission sets. When the instructions say add to a profile, ignore that, and instead put it in the permission set, which goes to the permission set group, which goes to the user. Occasionally, you might want to define a brand new permission set instead. Why might you want to do that? Maybe it's a lot of things, and maybe you have 4 different profiles that are going to share the same settings for this new thing that you're provisioning. And so maybe you want to make a permission set that is working with new feature XYZ, and maybe you're going to give it to every profile in your org except for one by not editing the profile, but instead defining a brand new permission set like this, and then adding that permission set into 1 or more permission set groups, which automatically flow to all your users, and you're done. So already you can start to see this is less work potentially than the other way. So that's the hardest thing, is you have to ignore the instructions. And that's pretty hard to do when you're on a crunch, when you're new, you're working with somewhat inexperience. You just have to be brave and do that, but you'll get the muscles to be a permission set based administrator very soon. You also can do this in your sandbox and migrate it. So additionally, sometimes Salesforce brings out new permission sets on their own. You will notice in, let's see, my org, which is right here. If we go to permission sets, I have a bunch of permission sets that start with my 3-letter acronym. In fact, I have, how many do we have now? I can't tell because this is in the way. I have 33 of them. Okay, but if I go to all permission sets, we have all these permission sets that I didn't make. I made them. They start with SYM. And so, there's just all these other permission sets that have come from Salesforce, code builder user, data cloud user, Einstein search, financial data. Anyway, there's just a whole bunch of them that come from Salesforce. And what you may want to do is, you're going to find in the instructions for the quarterly release, it says, add that permission to a profile. In fact, add it to all the profiles that are going to need it. And you're not going to want to do that. Instead, all you're going to do is find the permission set that they have added new and you're going to add it to each of the permission set groups, and that's it. It will flow to all your users. And so, again, simpler, but it's hard to ignore those instructions. Similarly, when you add a package or update a package, often the instructions include either new permissions that have to be added to the profiles, or many of the new packages, the new modern packages, actually come with a permission set defined by the object, by the package that have to be assigned, and the instructions will invariably say, assign it to the profile. And that's wrong. And instead, we're going to find that permission set that has been created by the package, or find the new permission that has been defined by the package and add it to a permission set, which flows up to a permission set group and to our user. We won't keep modifying the profile. All right, let's see. The next frequent use of permission sets as you go on your day-to-day job is you'll be having little incremental functional additions to your Salesforce org, and some of the functional addition will mean that somebody's job scope has increased and they need to see more objects, or they need to see more apps, or they need to have different capabilities or different fields. In the past, you would have tracked that down to a profile. Frequently, you would have had to have created a new profile and duplicate all the capabilities and hope anyway, because it's becoming different. But instead, when you have new capabilities being delivered in your org by either yourself or you and your dev team, you're going to need to architect it to include permission sets. And you'll create a permission set that allows this new user to do something or another, and you're going to create it, and then you're probably going to assign it into a permission set group, although occasionally features only get assigned to one or two users directly through a permission set. It's kind of rare that you do that, but it is permitted, it's allowed. It just makes it more complicated. It's not part of your safe scaffolding, but it is perfectly permitted to create a permission set and then assign it directly to a user or to bring out new functionality. And sometimes what you're doing is limiting the scope of all the users, but then giving it back to some particular set of users. Maybe you're retiring some features and you don't want anybody to use it anymore. And so what you would be doing then is going into the profile and removing access to those features. But let's say one department or one set of people, or maybe even one person, still needs to have access. Then you would create a permission set for that same functionality and assign it to that one permission set group, or to that one user even, in fact. So new incremental features allow you to start exercising your permission set based admin muscle and get that skill. It stops you from having to do endless profile edits. You get it right once with a permission set, and you apply it to all the profiles that need it. And so you have far less cut and paste errors, you have far less testing to do, and far less errors occur downstream. So that's the main ways that you'll be doing it. There's one other way that's cropping up. Our friends who develop with Flow are doing such cool work these days that they are often giving us some custom Apex that does something really fantastic inside of Apex that could only have done by a developer in the past, and then they're exposing it through Flow. And what this means is that users need access to some Apex in order to run a flow. And there's just a growing number of these. Data tables are a very famous component, screen component. Data fetcher is a very famous screen component. And there are more, and many of these now require access to an Apex in order for a user to run a flow. And if you have forgotten to assign that to a particular profile or another, they get an error. I mean, it just crashes unceremoniously when they run their flow. And so You have to give access to Apex classes for Flow users now quite frequently. And so one of the best way that I can find to do this is to create a permission set for Flow Apex classes, and then just assign that to all permission set groups that you have, which means it then flows to all users. I think this is the best way to do it. These Apex classes typically are not very sensitive. You don't know what user may run what flow typically, and so it's probably best to just provision all users to be able to run all of the components that require Apex classes. And so you could you could remove one or two if you have developed something that's really sensitive. Obviously you would reconsider this advice, but I think it's best to have one permission set that is just your Flow Apex permissions. Let's see if we can find mine right quick. There is our org and settings. If we go to permission sets and look into the SIM permission set groups, and then if I type the word flow, there we go. So here is the SIM work with Flow Apex controllers permission set. And you'll notice, it's using the 3-letter acronym SYM. I'm using the work with naming convention because it's kind of, when you get into larger jobs, which we haven't talked about yet, you start thinking about defining some working with capabilities. So this one is called Work with SIM Apex Controllers. And, just as a reminder, we have these wonderful friendly pages. We can, I think the view summary won't show me anything. It does, looky there. This, it tells me at least that I've added it to all of my permission set groups. And it's not going to show me, they don't currently show us Apex class access in the summary, but we could go into the permission set and look at, and all that's in this permission set are some Apex class access. And that's the beauty of it. I define it once, I assign it to all the permission set groups in my org, which means it flows. All right, so that's what we'll be doing on a regular basis. I think this will allow you to develop good muscles, good skills, so that you're ready for that 2026 transition. You're working faster with fewer errors, and you're increasing the value of your career knowledge. So thanks much. Bye. In the next video, we will discuss what are the advantages of doing this. And then in the last video, we'll talk about some larger tasks to take on once you have developed good skill.